Ezra, and this week in Mantorship, we'll be talking about, that's right, the father trauma, father wounds, which would be considered for so many of us the first trauma. There's a number of things that I've written down here and that I'm looking forward to discussing with the men in Mantorship, where we'll begin to open it up, and then after that, we're going to do a different gathering in the Manbodiment movement, which will be like a workshop for forgiveness and also for action in terms of how you want to navigate moving beyond that. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. Forgiveness does mean taking things into account, acknowledging, choosing from that point to be accountable for how you feel inside based on said circumstances, which means we will bring it to light. And in the gathering, we'll probably do some things that, such as a sound healing, some movement, some things to catalyze the emotions that come up so that we can move forward. Why? Father wounds is the first initial trauma. It's prevalent. All right, we're noticing, and I'm definitely noticing, and this has been, of course, a consistent unfoldment in the men's space of having to navigate, to look back, to identify, to unearth the different journeys that we have had as men. I'm just speaking to the men. Of course, women should likely resonate with this, and how that's affected us in the way that we show up in life. And so, I want to talk about a couple of things. Let me just run down this list, and then I'll elaborate on some of them. And we'll make this as snappy as it needs to be. So we notice this is an initial trauma. We're talking about betrayal and our ability to feel safe as men. And where does that directly translate to? It's going to show up in how you navigate in relationships. You can be in the space of a relationship, but not be showing up, which means able to be present as your full self. Our journey here at this point is to show up, to arrive, to be there, to be present in the adult state of who we are. And so, how can we do so for navigating as hurt little boys? What does it look like to grow that little boy up? We want to have the opportunity and spaces with each other as men to acknowledge the things that we've encountered, that we've navigated in our life. One of the things that we're going to speak to is this phenomena of ambiguous trauma and how that affects someone. Now, if you've watched my video on ghosting, then you'll see we kind of speak to that. The ambiguous trauma is something that's unresolved, that continues to eat away at your energy and stop you from expanding into the fullness of who you're called to be in this life. We want acknowledgement. We want to, believe it or not, forgive, because otherwise we're holding a grudge on those who we love, those who we like, and stopping us from being the fullness of who we've called ourselves to be. In forgiveness, we are given the opportunity to move forward. So this is a journey of us acknowledging some of the things, these wounds that have happened in our childhood, which is typically the first wound a man goes through, looking at his father as the divine, as the first expression of masculinity, if you will, and even balanced masculinity and femininity, and then taking our little boys, taking those little boys by the hand, the little boy that is us, and even the little boy that is our father, if your father's still alive, even if he has transitioned, even if you never met him, they did one thing right. Your father opened up a portal through his participation in however it came about to help you to have a chance to navigate this physical body in life. Oh, aloha. So let's talk about also ancestral wounds. And I'm going to get into your racial daddy for those of us who've navigated even the journey of wanting to reconcile the journey of a slave identity in the United States, which actually many of you, whether you recognize it or not, are navigating that space, but it hasn't been spoken to. And also sanity, unity, and responsibility. So the betrayal, right? You've got your dad. Maybe you didn't meet your dad. Maybe you had a father present, but you felt he wasn't present. And we're holding things against our fathers because we were made to feel unsafe. Father, masculinity, men. What do women look forward to in us, in truth? Safety, stability, structure, dependability. And so if you as a man haven't had that, if you don't really feel like you had that from your father, it's going to show up in us trying to protect ourselves, because then you're a little boy trying to fend against the world who is after you, right? After your liberty, after your abundance, after your truth. And so it shows up in relationship as us taking harsh measures, not having compassion, not knowing what to do and being able to express that, and finding all these different countermeasures, whether it be drugs, whether it be different chemical substances, whether it be other ways to numb, whether it be overt and unsafe promiscuity, so to say, lack of morality. Now that can be here nor there based on how you look at the world. Doing things that hurt people. Why? Because hurt people hurt people. We've heard this so many times. In a place like Tulum, in places like Bali, where I've lived, Sedona folks, Cali, Encinitas, there's a number of places that, have come across, in Hawaii as well, have come across and are presented as spiritual spaces for the advancement of beings who are seeking to be close to the divine. And I would posit that every space that we're at, whether you're in the States, in Europe, in Africa, anywhere that you are seated, all of us have come through, for the most part, through a man and a woman. Even if it was in vitro fertilization, there were still those two components. And so there was someone else who had a body previously to help to contribute to what makes you up. And so if you are in a space as a man where you haven't set to resolve certain issues with your father, with the identity of your father, with the ego states of your father, that you continually be battling that underneath the surface or even right in your face. And women feel that. And what you end up encountering are men who either get walked all over, men who are kind, but to the point where they're nice to the point where they're Mr. Nice Guy to the point where they're not respected or respectable, right? And so we want to rectify that. We want to take this opportunity to get together, to sit with other men who may even resemble what we see. Is we see that there's a resemblance of some aspect of our fathers, and coincidentally, we respond to that. We respond with a trauma response. We respond not actually being present, but in a way to protect ourselves. And so this shows up in business. Brothers, I'd like to ask you, who are the different folks who represent your father? I got a small list here. Your uncles, those could be representative of your father. Teachers that you've incurred in life, other male figures, these could be representatives of your father. Mentors could be a representative of your father. Slave master is certainly someone who's commandeered said person and said, okay, now I am above you. I'm between you and the divine, and you will do what I say. I am your daddy, right? And they're even called daddy on the plantation if you look at historical processes. Governments who go to other countries and take over, they become a surrogate, self-declared military complex daddy, and they set the rules. They create the structures. Do you understand? A prison warden, if you've been arrested, this person becomes your daddy. And then they have other people who they get to, allow to play as surrogate daddies. Your bosses act like a daddy. And so also the people who you make deals with, who you entrust an aspect of yourself to, can become as a daddy. And, then you have the daddies who you never knew, who passed away at some point in your childhood, or the absentee father. And many of us end up playing those same roles over again in our lives, even no matter how we try to escape it. And so what you have are men who are afraid, who are navigating in a space where they're just trying to figure it out, but also deep down there's a feeling of betrayal, of anger, of resentment for not being taught how to do what we're expected to do. Then you have sometimes a dynamic where the father was absent for one way or another, and there is a lot of, talking about that individual. And so that fills a man with rancor. It fills him with a feeling of inadequacy. And that plays out, again, in relationships. So what's going to be nice is for us to get together and really to speak to maybe, the thing that's been most on your mind and on your heart, if you're willing to dig deep, in regards to your father, more so your father dynamic. And we're going to look at how that's played out in your life and how that has affected you in your relationships, because then you end up playing out even the opposite, but to an extreme of what you experienced with your father, with your partner. You may end up in a father-daughter or father-son dynamic, depending on the kind of relationship that you entertain. And so that's still not equal, and it's still not, a good scenario for harmonious relating with one another. And this is really the core of what we're seeking to do, is to create a harmonious relationship within yourself, and then to be able to extend that through a mission, through embodiment, through what you speak aligned with what you do in the relationships, and that creates something amazing. So this year, 2025, us as men, we get to really speak to, because we really have all the tools present to assist us in becoming the men who we've desired to be. Better men than those who came before us to an extent, because we take these men forward into the future. And so this is an opportunity, again, to speak to actually heal, to begin the process of healing, and also put certain things behind you. Because real forgiveness doesn't mean you forget. It means you've taken the lesson from what's happened, and also in our maturity process, we can then take not only the lessons, right, which are going to help us to make our decisions, they're going to help us to discern, and also show up in more of what we can call sovereignty, a spiritual sovereignty, and other aspects of sovereignty, which allow you to make choices based on who you're choosing to be, not what's affected you in the past. So, what is it that you need to acknowledge, men, in regards to the dynamic between you and your father? Think about what's beneath the surface, what has been ambiguous. Did something happen to you as a kid? Did he beat you? Did he molest you? Were you raped by any of those father figures that I mentioned? The uncle, the slave master, we know this happened, the teacher, the governments, right, who take advantage at times, the prison wardens, if you were in a prison scenario where you're not considered the same thing. Even if you were in the military, then your superior officer could serve, in a sense, as a father figure. And if there's something that goes wrong where you're coming in a naive space, or in a space of trusting, and that's betrayed, that triggers a deep wound. And then how have you responded to that? So we want to look at, how do you respond in your trauma, in your triggers, in regards to those wounding. And also, I would love for many of the men who come into this space also to have a little bit of mercy and compassion on themselves. And truth be told, we then in that forgiveness get to cultivate compassion for those who came before us, whether it be a father, grandfather, or any of the other father figures who are in the process, in the conscious or unconscious, which is still conscious, right? Consciousness speaks to, you have matter, which is this frame, and then you have the spirit, and it's reflecting and able to observe, and the awareness is what we're seeking to gain. So we're going to take some time and gain some awareness on what you've been navigating, and then from that space of awareness, we're going to look at how we can set it aside. So in the Manbodiment, I think we're going to do a Ho'oponopono workshop, which is great. Those of you who have heard of Ho'oponopono, maybe you get to experience how I utilize that, which is in line with, again, Len Hugh Haleakala's way. And so it is an opportunity to make relationship right, which is a reconciliation. And you don't need your father to be there. Men, I tell you, a lot of you are looking for someone to say sorry. I don't wait for that. And I'm encouraging you, don't wait for an apology. Apologies come when they're sincere and necessary. And even sometimes you get an insincere apology. I'm not telling you go knocking at your daddy's door and tell him, hey, daddy, apologize. Do you think that's going to feel right? When in your life have you told someone to apologize, and if it wasn't sincere, how did it feel? So I don't want to rob you of something. I want to encourage you to infill yourself with an empowered stance. The empowered stance is for you now, as the progeny, as the person who has been shot forth from the bow of your father's constitution and your mother's constitution, to say, you know what? My mother and my father did what they did. That can't be taken back. Of course, you can have conversations about what's unfolded for you and hear what's going on with them. This can open up the door for a whole new type of relationship. I'm speaking from experience. All right. If you've been beaten by your father, even if that was part of the culture, those of us from a Caribbean culture, that punishment, right, was part of it. Okay. Because it was an attempt for the most part to keep you out of trouble. Maybe it was passing something else down. And so it's like, you now have the tools. When you have the tools to recognize and also to reconcile, then it's on you. Fellas, it's on you to make it a better day for yourself, and ultimately for those who are going to come after you. So this is your time. This is your year to say, yes, these things happened, and so we can do this together as men. Those of you who are choosing to come into the space, those of you who are choosing to work with me as well, say in the one-on-one Manbodiment 8-week programs, where we definitely look at the dynamic between you and your father. If you were beaten, that's going to create something different. For sure, it made me someone who was a little bit more violent and angry, resentful, and sometimes, most of the times, I also took out that violence on myself, because as a child, if you're beaten, you can't really defend yourself, right? If you're dealing with a larger entity, such as corporation or a teacher, an adult, and you're small, what can you do? Sometimes you have the fighters who respond, and it doesn't work out so well for them. You end up in juvenile court, you end up taking someone's life, and so we want to release that anger, because really you don't have to carry that with you. And there's some healthy ways to release it. The best way is to utilize this logic to acknowledge and allow emotions to be presented, and then to take these emotions and to reconcile them in a way that is going to be beneficial for you in the long term. That's going to help you to continue to attain your core needs. Forgiveness, healing, lightness is a core need of all human beings. And to come back into the understanding, the understanding, the recognition of our unity, and the fact that all of these things can be turned into a benefit for you because you're here now. You're here now with the tools, the resources, the support. So if you feel like you're lacking those tools, those resources, and that kind of support, the best thing to do is to connect with other men who are adept, who are moving forward in that space. And so what's going to come up is, when you speak to, some of the father wounds, well, what's going to come up are the wounds. So we're going to take the Band-Aid off just a little bit. And then, having a solution is, I think, one of the best things about being geared in a logical way and getting to apply the solution. And in the application, and it's a consistent application, not a silver bullet, although some things do work quicker than others, you get to then step into your empowered state by witnessing yourself freer, more powerful, and guess who else gets to feel it? Your children, your partners, the women that you connect with, because they too can trigger those woundings, and likely they're carrying some of those woundings as well. And so if you're in that father-daughter dynamic, if you're in a dynamic where you're not feeling feeling security from the partner in terms of how they show up to pair with you, and also if you're not feeling the type of support, but it's really, or maturity, well, there's likely something that has to do with that in the background. So we want to bring it to the foreground, and we can absolutely help to move you through that. So it's, again, light conversation about the father dynamic that went down in your past, identifying something. Let's pick the biggest thing, the top 3 things even. We'll see how much time we have for that in mentorship. And then in the Manbodiment movement gathering, we'll have more time. And so we'll do the Ho'oponopono workshop, and, we'll do a clearing activation to release some of those codes. Why? That's it. And it's like one of the best things to move through. And so in doing this with other men, in doing this in a space where you have some solutions, where you have some practical application, where we can utilize some of what people would call the woo-woo, but I'm also pragmatic. And I've done this myself. So I'm speaking from an embodied stance of going from someone who took, my dad's form of love through trying to protect me, through what he knew, and didn't know much about him, and inquired, well, what happened to him? We don't often know. And also, how did that make me feel? It made me feel like I wanted to take his life, and I began to train for that. It doesn't feel good. It couldn't feel good for any father to hear, and so I'm compassionate and tactful when I speak to this, because at this point, I revere my father. And really, I always revered him. And I would say that I looked at my father as the divine. I wasn't worried about going to hell. I was worried about getting in trouble with my dad. I wasn't worried about getting in trouble with teachers. I wasn't worried about fighting a goddamn person. And so that put me in certain positions. The only person that I feared was my father, and that fear turned to anger. It turned to disdain. It turned to something that's, taken a lot of time and effort. But I made the time. I took the effort to inquire, well, what happened to him? And as I started to understand his journey and his upbringing, I started to look into the culture I start to dig more into the historical journey of even the black man in the States, and I'm just speaking to my frame, but also the historical journey now of our of every different nationality, so to say, which are just ideals. Also, now when I speak to the slave daddy as your father, well, what's happened for so many of black men, specifically in the States and also around the world, due to the actual history of slavery, is that you've been presented with an ideal. Whiteness is an ideal. Blackness is an ideal. My hair is black and kind of peppered, and it has white and black, but I don't look like the rest of that, you see? And so we get stuck into ideals, and ideals that put us into ego states and belief systems, and these belief systems take us away from the truth of who we are. I am seeking to disillusion myself from that, and any man that's in my presence is going to need to be open to that type of disillusionment kindly, because this can cause an existential crisis, but it also opens up the door for us to really operate as one man, because that's the truth of what we are. Navigating in truth is an empowered stance. People want power, but there are things that they're afraid of. They're afraid of annihilation. They're afraid of death. You're afraid of being embarrassed. You're afraid of contending with the shame that can come up from any of the many things that have happened to you in your youth that you have addressed, that you haven't addressed, that you've never told anyone, that you've told people that nobody listened and did a damn thing. So we want to come into a space of being able to look after each other as men, to trust one another again, because then we can bond together. We can show up. And there's nothing more beautiful for me than a brother that I can trust. And many of you are navigating in a space where really you don't trust anyone because you've been let down so often. Or you have navigated the space based on your belief system of closing up to receiving the support, the trustworthiness, the actual admiration, love, dedication, dignity, sharing that can happen when you look beyond our hues and work from the hue man with each other. We like to build. We love to get together. We love to be boisterous and express. We like to have a team mentality as men. And also, we're not so agreeable. And that's part of the loveliness of our Constitution, because that makes us stand up for what's important. So I'm calling you men into account this year. If you're navigating some daddy issues, it's okay. All of us have. But this is the year where you look inside, where you look back, and then you turn all the way back around. You take hold of the tools that are being presented to you. You stop eating yourself alive. You stop eating other people alive. You decide not to mistreat people. You chill on the name calling. You stop bragging about things that aren't worth bragging about, and you get serious, and you build a robustness from the inside out. How do you do it? You look. You put it on the table. Trust. We will hold you as you put it on the table. And by hold you, we don't mean hold you down. I mean hold you up, lift you up, so that you can navigate the way that you've been called to do it. This is how we make the world. You make your individual world a better place. So this also may mean conflict. We have space for conflict. Some of the guys here are hosting spaces where they do family constellation. So it can be healing for you to be able to look at another man and speak to him as he holds the archetype of your father and see what comes through. It can be very healing. But the next step is always going to be, what will you do afterwards? How will you choose to not repeat the old habits that you've taken on, to repeat the programs that have been put into you that really don't belong in that frame? And so subsequently, if you take those steps, guess what happens? You start to heal ancestral things. You, with your father's essence, with your mother's essence, take charge of the ship, and then you begin to heal the relationship, and you travel in a different way. And this really, and I'm speaking from experience once again, my father and I are best friends now. There's nothing that we can't talk about. I have presented to him, hey Dad, I had this is what happened to me as a kid. It made me want to kill myself. It made me want to, maybe not only want to be suicidal, it also made me a little homicidal. And I'm fortunate that I had some measure of logic and some inspiration to inquire and also to speak up for myself. I spoke up and I said, hey, now I don't understand why you're doing all the things that you're doing in terms of this, but I can be talked to and reasoned with, and I'd like to go that route. I'm also willing to listen. So I submitted myself, in truth, because this is someone who's also been providing for me, and I allowed for some imperfection and the state of boundary. Now, I did this at a young age, and surprise, surprise, it was respected. And then I got to find out about what he went through. And also the same thing happened with him. So I put myself into an initiation and a rites of passage. And then I carried my father forward as well. And I'm proud to do that. And I consider that part of my kuleana, my sacred, beautiful, and trusted responsibility. And men, I charge you with the same energy. This is your kuleana as well. You further and you better the experience that you had or didn't get to have with your father in yourself, in your life. You will not regret it. I'm speaking to many of you in the spiritual community, in the coaching community. Look in, all right? And let's find some actual, it's not just you show up in a place and you do just a little bit of yoga. No offense, I have much love for the yoga, but there's a deeper, yoga that you can embody. It's not just the tantric experiences, but there's a deeper tantra that you can embody. Embody it, because you are built for it. You are built to grow, to experience a life of fulfillment, to create circumstances for the fulfillment and fulfilling life for those around you. Do you get it? Is this aligned? If you're coming to Tulum and you're interested in that space of getting together as men, you connect with me. Show up. Mantorship is there. It's been there. It's been running. The Manbodiment movement has been going in Tulum nonstop, and soon enough I'll travel out to your country. I'll be going to Europe. I'll hit up the States again. I'll actually make my time and go back to Africa as well. I'll visit the Caribbean, other places in the Caribbean, and I'll bring this message and bring that energy. You see, because it's here. It's here. And I'm not, it's no like, the revolution doesn't have to be televised, but it definitely has to be walked towards. Your revolution starts with you within, and it also starts with the assistance. The assistance, the hand that is being provided to you, and all you got to do is take that hand and trust beyond the fear response, the trauma response, and the ambiguity that you've been navigating on your journey that has kept you from really seeing, really healing what needs to be healed. And it's this victory. That's all that's, going to come after that. You're going to see the world in a different light. You're going to see other men in a different light. You're going to see the men who came before you in a different light because they helped you to get here. Your father helped you to get here. Your father gave you the catalyst, no matter what happened, to grow, to experience what it is to heal, and then to bring that forward into the future and to share the lessons so that some people don't even have to go through it. I know they say the enemy of a great life can be a good life. So if your life has been what you consider shit, well, it's time to utilize that as fertilizer and reap the abundance of what happens when you catalyze. If you need help learning how to do this, if you're in a low, sunken space, if you're in the victim seat, if you are, you're feeling you're not able to stand up for yourself as a man, you need to get around other men who know how to stand up for themselves and receive that vibration, that activation, and talk and get into that wisdom and understand the journey of men. When we come together, we open up portals. When I get together with men, we open up portals for wisdom to be shared, for commonality to be observed, for dignity to be felt, and for a different course of action to be taken. And all you got to do is follow the steps at your pace. Consistency, a little bit at a time, one foot in front of the other, even if it's at a crawling pace, will yield results. The same way you could save a little bit here and a little bit there. The next thing you know, you got a little dough, maybe a lot of dough. It's just the way it goes. So this is Ezra Yah here, speaking to that on a live, getting back to action, really enjoying the little break and the ceremonial journey that I got to navigate through, and really encouraging you to cultivate that. And this will bring you into balance as well, because guess what? The feminine energetic in you is also seeking that safety. And so you may be thinking that you're responding in a hyper, quote unquote, masculine way, but it's really your feminine aspect needing to feel the support of a masculine energy that is pure, that is sincere, that really holds within its core the opportunity, the intention, the vision. I'm holding a vision for you. I'm envisioning and living a vision. I am solidifying from the unseen here, all around, something for you to receive. All you got to do is take hold. So let's just go over these things again. You've got the journey of father wounds, which would be the first core wound. And women who are listening, you can absolutely rewind and see how this applies to you. And then I will also do some things for the women as well. As I have, the ceremonies that I have held for women have definitely been really powerful. And some of them will come and testify at some point. You know, some of the things that I do for work, for service, these aren't things. Everyone's got their testimony, but I don't really push people to give a testimony because they can be so personal. Aloha, Rachel. How are you? Good to see you on here. And, you know, so what I'm speaking to is father wounds. In the next men's gathering that we're going to do tomorrow, and also for the Manbodiment movement, we're going to prick the wound of that initial wound that men have navigated in the space of their fathers that have kept them from being able to come together as men, from being able to show up in relationships, and deep down being able to cultivate that little boy that needs to be raised up and grown up. And so this is a year of maturity. For maturity, you need to endeavor to a level of seriousness, to look at, despite all the things that are being presented to us, what is a priority right now for you to become who you've been called to be. Money surely is a priority. Working out definitely is a priority. You know, sexual dynamics and connecting with people and feeling cariña. These are things that are priorities. Another priority is to look inside and see what needs to be healed. And for the men, you have the strength, and we can build that robustness. You can come back from just about anything, regardless of what happens to your exterior, and cultivate forgiveness. And this is a special skill, something that needs to be put into practice. And to forgive in truth elevates, and it also alleviates so many entanglements. And it gives you such a boost of energy that you'll be able to transcend into the next version of who you are. And so I'm looking forward to helping men to move forward. Again, to identify, what is your little boy feeling? It's all right. You know, some of your little boys are feeling lost. They're feeling uncared for. They're not feeling valued, even in all the things that you do to show up in terms of work and relationship. They felt molested, and we'll speak to that. They have felt mistreated. They felt abandoned. Okay, and so we're going to show you how to take hold of your little boy. And in doing so, you will also be able to do this for your fathers. And that's a special thing to say, you know, the book that my father has and has included me in is the book called Raising Boys to Men, right? And this is As Like Boys to Men. We know the play on that. But it's really the journey of fatherhood between himself, myself, my brother. What is up, Juan? Juan, this is a great one, you know, to speak to, because a lot of what we deal with is the father wound. And Juan can testify on how this shows up somatically. As a matter of fact, Juan, tell me, do you have the liberty to come on in this live and just share a little bit about some of the ways that our father wounds are trapped in our soma, in the body, because you do such powerful work to release that? Give me a thumbs up and make a request, and I'd love to have you on. And if now's not the time, then we'll definitely do something. Yeah? And also being able to release ancestral wounds in our DNA. We can do this now. And sanity, okay? These things that happen to us as a child and in the world that we live in, which can be topsy-turvy and distorted, can create a level of insanity. And so when you begin to become sane, you look at the world and you see what's going on, and it feels like, I can't hack it, I can't cope with this. And you internalize it, coming into unity. Okay, great. Juan, let's continue, brother. Let me see if you could make a request, I'm gonna have you come on. And I think this will be a nice thing for people to receive. Go live with Tulum Body. And or you send it to me. All right. And so my brother Juan is someone who I've had the opportunity to work with, and I look forward to, you know, connecting with more. Love you, brother. So happy to see your face, and I appreciate you coming on. And
love you, brother. How you doing?
I'm fantastic, man. Just, you know, finish a little journey, the ceremonial journey of the other work that I do. And now I'm back in my space. I actually love doing lives on my staircase. So you've seen the space because you've been one of the few people I trust in my temple.
Thank you.
So, yeah, man. So I look forward to seeing you again in person. You got some good things coming up. You saw the Tai Chi activation. And now tomorrow I'll be back in Mantorship, which I love seeing your brother there as well, and I'm so grateful to have met you in that space.
No, yeah,
And
it's
so
amazing
I'm
there
speaking
too.
to the father wound.
Yeah, no,
How are you, man?
hanging out, and I saw you go live, and I was like, oh, I want to check out what you're talking about, and
Thank you.
I just a couple clients, so this is perfect.
Excellent. Could you Are you open to sharing, just a little bit about the work that you do really quickly? Because I'm telling you, this is phenomenal. He's humble, but he's a master, right?
Oh,
At the body work and different like somatic release. And I'm really looking forward to receiving, more from you. And then also to speak to how some of these father wounds that men and women carry, now we can also speak to the women, show up somatically in the body. I hand it over to you, brother.
100%. So everybody, my name is Juan. I met as right in Tulum, and basically the acupressure that I do comes from martial arts. It's different from the traditional medicine from China that is passed on, and for the last 100 years, this one comes from thousands of years ago, and it goes deep. And as Ezra said, this one can actually find the trauma that's stuck in our tissue, sometimes in the muscles, sometimes in the tendons, sometimes in the ligaments, and a lot of times it's in the organs, right? So depending on where it's at, it's not that hard to find if the person is willing to just relax and kind of just settle into a therapy. And like you're saying, for men and women, and lately I've seen a lot of women with this kind of wound from their parents. I was just working on this girl who her dad committed suicide and long ago, but she cannot show up in relationships with men, and every relationship she has, she keeps bringing these wounds from her dad and the pain and stuff like that, and she keeps sabotaging her relationships. So she falls in love, the guy falls in love, everything's going well for the first 2 3 months, and after the kind of honeymoon phase, her relationships all just burned to the ground, and now she's lonely, what to do. So I was working on her, and I found that in the biceps, in both biceps, there were these, and this ball felt like gummy bears. So if you take a gummy bear from the store, for example, and you put like 4 or 5 gummy bears together, and you like and squeeze them tight like gelatin, that's what it felt like.
Wow.
So when I was released through pythalogy, which is a slapping vibrational technique, she just started to breathe really heavy and just cry and cry and cry. So now we know that a lot of these wounds somatize in this area in the bicep because the meridians and those lines and those blood vessels come through the shoulder right to the heart, right?
Mhm.
So
Right.
they're connected right on the biceps a lot of times. So instead of me going to the hip flexor or going to the hamstring or going to the calves, I go right to the bicep when there's a lot of father wounds.
Mhm.
And something that you guys at home can do is if you have a father wound, even a mother wound, something like that, is just with your hand, just slap your bicep for 60 seconds and then take
Mm.
4 breaths. So you have 4 sets where you inhale for 4 seconds, you hold for 4 seconds, you exhale for 4 seconds, you do that 4 times, then you do the other side for 1 minute, and then you do the other side for 2 minutes, and then again you breathe and you go like that and you build it up for 3 minutes. Now by the time you do 3 minutes, from 1 minute, then 2 minutes, then 3 minutes, once you finish, just sit still and you see what comes up. By the time you do the 3 sets, you're gonna feel that if there's something related to a father wound, mother wound, it's gonna be coming up in that moment. And if you need to cry, please do so. If you need to
Absolutely.
scream, do so. If you need to yell, do so. um, because it's manifesting physically, it's somatized. There's something stuck in there, but you need to push it out, right? So the screaming, yelling, the crying, a lot of times is very important for the person just to have that release. So when I'm doing it for someone, it's easier because I can facilitate that. But if you're doing it by yourself, the slapping with this part or this part is very effective.
So the back side of the hand for the slapping,
A
like so. Yeah. Okay.
lot of
Copy
people are
that.
strong that way.
Yeah.
A lot of
Back
people are,
hand slap.
each way is a yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. Right on. That's great. And it's also great because what you're saying is due to the location on the meridians, you're gonna find this in both men and women. So
Yeah.
that's an excellent the box breathing, and that will be nice, and I'll probably employ that in actually I would love to do that in the Manbodiment, but then there's also, holding a space for the release. So depending on how many men are there, then I want to consider that, and then we can do some movement after that
And
as well.
you could do a mentorship for men too. Is you if you after you do your the beginning, which is amazing the way you do it, the introduction, the meditation, breathing, and all that, and when you finish and you get everybody together right before you say bye, and you want to kind of work in this, is you pair everybody. So get everybody in just two guys, everybody just coming together, and then have them just go like this. So one person is kind of hugging themselves,
Okay.
and you're just saying words of encouragement, self-love. Although our
Yeah.
person is slapping their ribs.
The ribs. Get it. All right.
Honestly, do like 2 minutes.
2 minutes.
And don't tell them to be like, just tell them to like,
Yeah.
put a little, give a
Oh,
nice
these
little
Muay
slap.
Thai guys. I know, right? I'm gonna tell them to ease up on a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. You get them to just go for it. And basically, when they're hugging themselves in that position, and you have the other partner slapping them on their ribs, because all those meridians are connected to the lung meridians
Right.
and heart meridians, a lot of sadness and grief is going to come out, right?
Okay.
So the person is comfortable in the group saying you are cool, but if not, they're not. When they go home, that activation is there. So when they go home, they're going to have a little bit of time for themselves just to let the emotions around flow
Oh,
and
I
get
really
it.
love that. Yeah. And I'll warn
You got it, bro.
them as well, before we do this. And so it's 2 minutes, the box breathing, the arms, and I have this. So those of you who are watching, that's something that you can, now he's shared with you a modality that you can use on yourself. And then what to expect, which is really important, right? When you're doing something, especially in the space of release, then the
Yeah,
next thing as part of your integration is to know what to expect. I did perform some body work. It's been a while, so I do this as part of some of the ceremony as well. And it always feels good. I'm probably going to begin to do more of that here in Tulum, just for some of the things that aren't spoken to.
you got
And yeah, really that focus on the biceps. So many times we focus on the hips, right? We think of the
yeah.
emotion stored in the hips, but not so much the arms, the tris and the bis and the wrist. But I feel so much. I often, just like the calves, I also see in this area, especially with women, a lot of tightness in the triceps
Yes.
and also in the biceps. In performing that massage, how how heavy do you go? Because
So
you don't want to hurt someone as well.
usually I just communicate with the person and I go, hey, listen, from a scale of 1 to 10,
Mhm.
1, no pain or no pressure, and 10 being excruciating pain and just a lot of force, a lot of pressure.
Yes.
Let's just go from a 3 to a 6. Let's just
3 to
navigate
6.
between a 3 to a 6. A 3 is a good starting point, and then you build it up. And then I do go up to a 10 sometimes, but I don't go for 5 to 10
Okay.
seconds. And I had this one girl that uh, she had gone some hardcore physical abuse with a couple of her ex boyfriends from back in the day. She's in her 40s now, 20s. So it sounded like she just kept kind of attracting that kind of guy. And then when we got a little bit deeper into it, it's also because her dad was being abusive to her mom. So she grew up, she had a really, really big father wound. So in her case, I did a lot of work on the biceps, a lot on the ribs, but I also went under the pectoralis muscle. So I
I
have,
did some work like that too.
yeah,
Yeah.
amazing work, muscle kinesiology, movement, mobility. But when you go on pectoralis, you really get deep in those heart meridians, and you're able to find the balls, the pebbles, the rocks, the
So
gummy
many
bears.
things that are because people are funny about getting massaged there as well. So if you're open and you're getting massage to allow, of course you need to really gauge the individual, right?
Exactly.
People to really feel in, and also I find a lot of tightness in the fascia by the ribs as well. So I get in between the rib cages, and that's something that a person can do themselves.
Absolutely. And it's no different from emotional freedom tapping. ATF, a lot of people do this on YouTube or stuff like that. Just a little bit of tap
Tap in the front.
right here,
Mm-hmm.
right here, ribs,
Ribs.
right here, top of the head, carotid shop area,
Right.
finger,
On
and
the
you do
fingers
that
too.
in seconds.
It's great.
It releases the fog.
Mm.
It releases that, and it's good to do it when you wake up in the morning, middle of the day, and at nighttime. There was a time in my life where I was facing a lot of negativity, a lot of challenges. I was doing it sometimes even 10, 20 times a day
Yeah.
just to release.
I had
And it
there
was
was a
work.
woman that I was dating a little while ago, and I remember we were having some difficult conversations. She
Yeah.
just started tapping But I really appreciate that. Like I can make a little joke, but I really appreciate people who are, just really they're using the modality of their self-soothing because she was still moving through the conversation. And so it's like, I want to encourage people not to be embarrassed with some of the things that you have to do to allow the energy to flow, even in a difficult time, because it's only beneficial to you.
And
And this is what we're speaking to.
allow the energy to flow, because what happens is, what with the day-to-day basis, the responsibilities, making money, paying bills, all this, then energy gets even more stuck, more stuck, more stuck, more stuck. What happens is that the blood vessels vasoconstrict, and then whatever blockages are in those areas, they start to get bigger and bigger and bigger, but the blood vessel is not vasodilating, it's just getting constricted. So that block only gonna get larger, right? So you gotta get the energy to flow. Yeah.
Bro, I'm really looking forward to getting to see you again, and then also, maybe if it's cool, maybe I'll make a trip up your way
Any
just to train and learn. I wish you could be here for this Tai Chi immersion that we're gonna do, because we have a really amazing. I feel like part of me is like, man, does Tulum deserve this? Is that wrong? Because the lineages are so powerful
Yes.
in terms of the like a very direct Tai Chi lineage, and his ethos is right on point, Sifu Michael, and also we're gonna practice not only Tai Chi, of course, Qigong. We have a great theory because his Sifu Townsend is well renowned, super master,
Seen him.
and right from grandmasters.
Amazing. I
Yeah.
want to learn from him.
hmm So, so I think I'm gonna train probably for the journey, for as much as he'd like to pass down to me, and I'll start to incorporate the Tai Chi into the men's groups as well as the Qigong. And there's really not much here. There's a wonderful woman named Sel who taught me how to do, who shared another version of the Thai massage. So I went through that program, and although I haven't been using it so much, but I'm looking forward to getting into that work. I can only do so many things here in Tulum,
No, absolutely.
and you know how body work can kind of drain you. So
You got the touch, and you get a very special energy. You're very unique. And then Qigong, Tai Chi, they're very a little bit different with some of the specifics, but like when you balance out the two modalities, and the breathing and the energy, and you can actually teach people how to feel that ball energy in between their hands,
yeah,
and then bring it in for healing,
bring it in and breathe it in, yeah, and bring it into your
then
dantian.
bring it back into them from source, from
hmm
their nature, especially where you are in Mexico, in
Yeah,
Tulum, buddy, like trees, the beach, the grounding, getting the body more alkaline just by wearing no shoes, putting your feet
amazing
on
space to be in.
that energy, and your qigong capabilities, your tai chi skills are only going to get larger and larger and so much faster.
Excellent. And I've used, some qigong. I studied a little bit in Thailand as well when I was on Koh Phangan, and there was a master at Samarkanduna who
Mhm.
was there. So that was, it was really beautiful, and I've naturally been able to project some of my chi. And so, you're familiar. They do also de-armoring down there, right? That modality
Yeah.
where they're actually going in and touching. And so I've done some of that work, but I've been hesitant because I realize, especially for men who need it, men and women, that we don't necessarily have to go physical, although it's a good component. We can still just move the chi, as I'm learning how the chi works with the blood. And
Yeah.
so it's like I'm happy, and we're gonna get into that insight. And I do look forward to coming up and learning, and also receiving from you. And then anything that I can do,
Much
or if
feel
you
like
want to even organize
you work
something
with me.
in your neck of the woods. How's it, brother?
I want
What-
you to work with me too, to get a perfect touch.
Oh yeah, I will do some work on you. It'll be my honor. It'll be my honor. And then even with the ceremonial things, if I'm able to do that there. But what ends up happening is you start to have that. These are frequencies, so you can carry the frequency, and so this is something that both of us, I think, with a lot of people coming into these spaces, utilizing external substances, it's important for you to consider the toll that that can take on your body, and learn about replenishing yourself, learning about grounding, as he spoke to, and taking your time, because it's not that immediate thing that you do, it's what you do after you have, you receive the therapy from someone such as Juan. Very few people such as Juan, but someone such as Juan. Then there's your aftercare. Everything that you do to heal is going to require some aftercare,
Yes.
some time. Even after yoga, there's the shavasana. So things need to settle, and then we need to look back again and then we need to cleanse. And so there's also the hydration, one of the things that many people don't do to help the water to flow in the body.
100%. Like one of the guys that came today for a session, when we finished right away, oh, I gotta get back to work. I'm like, no, you're gonna stay, do sauna for 30 minutes. Then after that, when you go in the jacuzzi, use the jets, get neck, massage, relax, and then you're going to work for a while.
Excellent, brother.
Okay.
Man,
So
I've been. God, can you repeat the last thing you said? I'm sorry.
Yeah, no. So you're right. The aftercare is very important.
Yeah. Love you, man. Really appreciate it. Is there anything that you'd like to share with the people, and can you also let them know how to get a hold of you, and
Thank you.
where they can find you?
Yeah, thank you, brother. So I'm leaving to Bali. I'm gonna be going on March 9th, and I'm gonna do some very powerful healing there, teaching some martial arts, some Kali sticks, some knives.
We'll be practicing some Kali as well here. Yes.
Awesome.
March 9th, huh?
Yes, March 9th. So anybody that you know or people out in Bali, hit me up. I'll be doing some powerful tune-ups, healing sessions out there, and about a one-way ticket. So we'll see how it goes. And then after, I'm visiting you guys in Tulum.
Excellent.
When I head back.
I'm so happy to hear that. Are you gonna go to Ubud, Canggu? Have you decided yet?
I'm gonna be staying Peranan.
Peranan.
I'm gonna be staying.
I know Peranan. Yeah, it's very nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice mornings there.
Yes.
Excellent. And there's some really good. You've been before? Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. Man, yeah, I made me want to fly out to Bali real quick, catch up with you.
I know.
So I'll check in. I think Evan may be out there too, so there may be an opportunity. There's another group, men's group out there that's been wanting to connect with us in terms of structure.
Right.
And so I'll tag them on this information. I think it's called the Bali Men's Chamber or something like this.
Beautiful.
And so they're doing some work out there, and that I think is going to be. I'm happy for Bali to receive you, and even more excited for you to come out here afterwards. And if something shifts and opens up for me to make it, because now it's been a long journey for this last set of work that I did, months of preparation to complete that. So now I'm looking forward to at some point beginning to travel a little bit more.
I love what you do.
Thank you, brother. Thank you.
Thank you for what you do, and women. You're awesome.
Thank you, brother. Ditto. Love you. Appreciate you.
Love you
I'll be happy to see your brother tomorrow and let him know that we dropped in. Also, sending my best to your parents.
Thank you.
Right?
Thank you.
Yeah. Cheers.
Pleasure, brother. We'll talk to you soon. Love, man.
Talk to you soon.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Yeah.
Okay, so for those of you on the live, I want to thank you for tuning in. Please look out and check in with my brother, and also, make use of what we've shared in this space. Some long live for Instagram. Lucky for you. I think I'll find a way to download it and put it on YouTube. One, if you have a YouTube, let me know. And maybe I can also tag your YouTube as well. And I may put this on, should go on Facebook. So if I have enough memory in my phone, I'd like to do this. Anyone else on? Do you have any questions in regards to the subject of father wounds, the healing, how this shows up in the body? We covered some great things, and then I'll also cover some of what Juan shared in mentorship and also in Manbodiment. I'll give it a second. We'll breathe together. I give thanks for all of you tuning in and for just, taking this journey with me, being willing to spend some time and really consider, like I said, men, women, men. We have this point in time the tools to shift what we need to shift. And the imperative thing at this point in time is to, for those of us who are getting up there, and even for the younger ones, 18, even look, maturity is not a bad thing. It's an amazing thing, and it's a gift to begin to attain it and to endeavor for that. So what does your process of coming into maturity look like? An important part, an important initiation, an important rites of passage that you can start to guide yourself through is the rites of passage of being able to forgive, of being able to look at what's been going on inside, what's happened to those who came before you, how that affected you, and to rectify it, reconcile, to come into at one-ment with yourself. So it's an internal work. The harmonious relationship starts with you, and then everything that's connected to you will benefit because we are in a unified field. Even if it's a matrix, Do people leave the matrix to come to a place like Tulum or Bali or Thailand, Chiang Mai, etc.? But really, there's a matrix there too. So you're not escaping, but it's really going in. It's going in and then cultivating something from within and then bringing forth that fruit. And this is your time. Seize the day. Carpe diem. Boy, girl, family, men and women. All right. So towards the end, I tend to get more excited. I think I feel good to wrap this up now. Mm, Feel free to share this with anyone. And again, drop questions. Drop also. Hey, look, I would love for people who check in afterwards. Some of these comments won't show. Um, in Hopefully they show in the replay, but drop some comments, some advice. I'm open to you guys sharing. We want to share knowledge here, and you can also share some of the different things that you found that have been part of the journey of uncovering feelings of betrayal, feelings that made you feel unsafe in your father journey, and also some of what you may have done. I believe and really appreciate, my journey with Ho'oponopono, extreme ownership, like being willing to take the reins and say, you know what, I'm gonna fix this. That's my attitude. I've been gung ho since I was a kid. I know I'm a Virgo. I may get made fun of sometimes, uh, but I accept it. And also, be willing to be the only one if you need to. You won't be the only one for long, or maybe you had to be the only one to shift for other people. Do it. Do it. You will be supported by the seen and the unseen, and maybe even some of the obscene. All right. This is Ez from the steps of the jungle in Tulum, giving thanks for you for this time and encouraging you to get on that good foot. I wore a bright shirt today so you wouldn't fall asleep. Thank you. Bassé Bassé! For those of you who know what that means, charge it. Let's get it. Ashe, aho, y aloha. Aloha cacao. Peace.